Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I need to talk about today's update for Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 that has the entire community up in arms and leaving angry Steam reviews. Now, I don't think one bad patch undoes all the hard work by the developers or changes how good the game has been so far, but I do think that I understand why people are frustrated, especially with this patch coming so soon after Helldivers 2 just course corrected, making a similar mistake. So, if you missed it today, we got a brand new difficulty level, which rewards you with cosmetics, but really isn't worthwhile for grinding outside of that. We also got a new operation that I found pretty interesting. A lot of it felt very similar to other operations we've done outside of the final boss fight. That one, if you don't want spoilers, then I will be showing a bit of footage of that towards the end. I do want to kind of talk about the boss fight as well. But yeah, that is going to be against this massive Bio-Titan, which is awesome looking. It's really cool scenery in that final fight as well, but you're not damaging it directly with your own weapons and abilities. It's one of those fights where you're using other weapons to kind of guide your massive cannons to shoot the Bio-Titan instead of actually taking it on yourself, which I know not a lot of people enjoy. I wish they had done something different with either mechanics wise or some other way so you're constantly fighting the boss itself. But that's not why people are upset. People are mad because there were a bunch of nerfs in the patch today, and this comes, like I mentioned, relatively recently after Helldivers 2 just had two major patches fixing a bunch of their nerfs and buffing a ton of things to make the game feel good once again. Meanwhile, Space Marine 2 with these nerfs makes the game challenging, and I would say for no reason. And why I say that with Space Marine 2 specifically is because, one, a lot of the people who have been grinding already are not really going to be hurt by this outside of their challenge for lethal difficulty. And so that's really where it can be a little frustrating, because it really does punish new and slower players who maybe don't have everything unlocked, because the grind is going to be just a bit harder with these nerfs. And my major pet peeve that I have when companies do these nerfs is, one, you should always have more buffs than nerfs to underperforming things, because even if it's purely for the optics and wanting people to be excited about the game, a patch with nothing but nerfs is going to get people frustrated, whether they actually are as damaging for the game and for the meta as possible doesn't matter, as much as the fact that perception wise it just looks really bad, especially in a game with an update like Space Marine 2, where this isn't some grand patch that has a bunch of new content. This isn't them unveiling the Horde mode, which is going to add a totally new way to play the game. Instead, you are going to be doing the same exact things in the game, but a bit harder. So what they could have done, in my opinion, is simply balanced the game around lethal difficulty and buffed some of the underperforming things. So if you made lethal, the final difficulty, just that much harder, and so it required the guns that are, and the parry system and all that to be as good as it is now, as it was before the patch, and then you buff a bunch of the things that weren't performing to that same level, then the rest of the game, which has already been out for a while, and you don't need to feel extremely unforgiving when you're jumping in early on, now will feel better through the early parts as you're grinding up through the early difficulties. It'll make the game a bit easier so you learn the ropes. And then once you get to that final tier difficulty, it'll be extremely challenging. And so maybe you even plan to add an additional difficulty down the road, or even modifiers that kind of hamper the way the game plays a little bit, in not necessarily a way that's frustrating, but just provides a different level of challenge. These are all things that I think work better than strictly nerfing the best stuff in the game. And so, yes, I'm not a game dev, but it's just a problem as somebody who's played Destiny 2, who has played Helldivers 2 a ton at launch, who has played Space Marine 2, plays a lot of these live service, ongoing type of games. I know Space Marine 2 isn't live service, but it has kind of a similar model. And so because of that, all these nerfs just inevitably feel bad, and that is incredibly frustrating. So I hope that they learn from this and they don't have to do the same thing that the developers over at Arrowhead for Helldivers 2 had to do earlier, and then issue apologies and then make major balance changes and probably delay new content, because the developers have to be working on patches instead of making fun new things, and that would be incredibly unfortunate. Now, some other things to note about this patch: I don't think it'll be enough. If you're a player who has put Space Marine 2 down and is having fun with other games, I don't believe this update is going to be enough to bring those players back, because there's one new sidearm, there's one new operation, and one new difficulty level, but the operation you have to play from the bottom difficulty, and so you're going to have to play it 4 times or 5 times now in order to get it to the max level with the other ones, and so that repeated content will probably feel a little bit overdone in the first couple days, right? We don't have any game-changing new content for Space Marine 2, and I still enjoy the game. I jumped in today, I went through the new operation, I had a good time. I thought some of the nerfs, I tested out the melta gun. You'll see it in the heavy melta for the heavy class. I was using that today. It didn't feel nearly as good as it used to. I know it's already been nerfed, and ultimately, there's a lot of underperforming items in this game, even at lower difficulties. And because of that, I know you need to upgrade these things and just try to improve them as much as possible. But it just feels really bad at times that the game is harder, seemingly for no reason, with no better rewards. That's the other major issue. If you have a raid or a horde mode or some kind of content that will really push you and reward you for that challenge, then I believe buffs and nerfs are not going to ever be all that bad. Power creep, though, is going to happen as people get better items, better weapons, better melees, all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, it's just, it's really frustrating to see another game that I really enjoy falling down this same path. And I know devs want their game to be difficult and challenging and all that kind of good stuff, but if the reward, if you don't, like, the other thing with Space Marine 2 that drives me nuts is that you don't unlock new weapons. You just improve the same weapons. You just improve the same class. Your abilities don't feel drastically different as you level them up. You just get additional benefits. And so because of that, it just doesn't feel like you're playing a different game. Like, if I were to beat an operation on max difficulty and I got a brand new gun to try in a brand new mission, then that would feel really good. Or if I got a brand new gun that completely changes my build, that would feel really good. But that's just not the way Space Marine 2 operates. And for that reason, the nerfs are even more punishing, just because it doesn't feel like you're working towards some fresh new type of gameplay. So anyway, bit of a rant for me, but I'm surprised that this happened again soon after the Helldivers 2 situation, and I hope other developers of these games, especially with so many other games in competition for people's time, money, and energy, would realize that community sentiment is valuable, is super important, and keeping the morale of the player base high is absolutely necessary. And if you don't do that, if you have so many more nerfs than you do buffs, you're going to lose the player base, unfortunately, and that seems to be the case, at least temporarily, with Space Marine 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. My name is Jopa. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously, as always. Comment, as always, and all that kind of good stuff as well. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.